Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Kitchen Spoons and Combat Boots. This episode, we're going to be working on back to school. With us, we have our resident expert, Rob Dornfried. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Thank you for having me, Dan.
There's been a lot of chat leading up to this podcast. You excited?
I am. Yes, getting ready to go back to school.
Yeah, it's easy. Just me and you having a conversation. We started doing these around January, and it's really been a fun project. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about you, Rob.
Yeah. So prior to putting on the uniform, I was a school teacher.
That's why you're here.
That's right. Yeah. So originally from Connecticut, where I taught in both public and private schools. I then taught overseas in Austria for a couple of years.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So there's a U.S. State Department exchange program with almost every country outside of North Korea and Iran. And honed my skills there, learned a little German in the process, immersed myself in the local culture. And in fact, that's what persuaded me to move up to Vermont upon my return, where I then also proceeded to meet my future wife.
Oh, wow.
Who's from Vermont. And she's the one who persuaded me to move up here.
Oh, wow.
So I began teaching in Vermont, both public and private, while also joining the National Guard, and then gradually coming on to orders in a full-time capacity. However, I still maintain the teacher in my blood.
And here you are working for us.
That's right.
So Rob works for us. He's our yellow ribbon coordinator. All of the deployment-related ceremonies, Rob's the man behind the curtain doing all that. So thanks for that. And also thank you for being here in the teacher capacity.
You're welcome. Yeah, COVID was a grind, I will say. That was probably the hardest year teaching wise. So everything compared to that is much easier in my opinion.
I can only imagine. Some of the terms like the pretendants we were talking about, all the online virtual meetings and Zoom classes had to be a nightmare.
Oh yeah. Attendance was a whole nut to crack into itself.
So what grade were you specifically teaching? High school, right?
Yep, primarily high school. Originally, I did my student teaching in the middle school grades. I found that students at that age group were the most impressionable, which I really valued, almost more so than the content itself.
Right.
But then I was offered a job in the high school, which I naturally took. Mm-hmm. Beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah.
And I went with it from there. So primarily ninth graders, who are arguably middle schoolers until halfway through the school year, but then also eventually some sophomores and juniors. In the juniors, I also really enjoyed because they're taking it extremely seriously. They're prepping for college. They're taking higher level courses. So I found that the younger the student, the more impressionable, the older the student, the more serious academically, which was intellectually stimulating to me. Yeah.
And then the seniors don't really care, so you didn't really have to deal with them. The juniors are still applying to college,
correct.
So they care.
Yeah, halfway through senior year, and once they've found out what college they're getting into or what their career path is, they've taken it down a few notches.
Yeah.
Which is fun though. So yeah, there's definite differences between every school I've taught in, public and private. Vermont, Connecticut, Austria.
That's crazy.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that about you. That's interesting. I did German in high school. I'm going to start just throwing German at you.
Oh, yeah.
Although I've been hitting the Duolingo app really hard, and I've just been doing French.
Okay. Well, we're nearby Quebec. Makes sense.
Yeah, so I've been dumping into French, but I'll have to hit you with some of the German.
All right.
You're like, it's Austria. They don't speak German in Austria. And you're like, wait, I don't know. I don't know. So you're the expert when it comes back to school.
Yes. As a teacher, it's important to have students that walk into the classroom on day one ready to roll. And I have definitely provided students lists of supplies, of organizational tips to prepare themselves over the summer. Oftentimes they have summer reading assignments that they need to gradually work on. So although they're off for the summer, there's generally some work that needs to be done depending on what grade level you're entering or what course level you're going into. But I definitely have some tips that are going to help students make a strong impression on their first few days of school and hit the ground running.
Good. Let's hear it. Let's kick it off. So back to school, day one. What are Mr. Dornfried's pro tips? What's your big ones? I guess? So what are your big ones? Over
the summer, as course rosters are given to the teacher and students know who the teacher is, it's important to maintain and establish communication over the summer. by email. Usually teachers will send out correspondence to their students over the summer, and it's important that they have a working school email account and that they continually access that, since oftentimes teachers will send communication, helpful tips, study guides, answers to questions. And if you're walking into that classroom on day one and the teacher already knows who you are, you're one step up. You only get one first impression.
Yeah.
And it's just human nature to assume that, students who are not communicative over the summer months or come in unprepared, it's going to make an unfortunate negative impression, which you can always recover from.
Right.
But naturally, you want to be a leader in the class. You want to earn a good grade in the class. You want to excel. And that's one way to do that is by communicating well over the summer.
That's such a big generational change. I feel like high school, I didn't have a computer in high school. Like computers were just like, hitting the street. I wasn't emailing my teacher before, I was going to classes, at the beginning of the school year.
It goes a really long way.
That's crazy.
It proves that you're involved, that you're engaged, that you're attentive. And during the school year, there's naturally going to be communication, whether it's through some type of communication portal that some schools have or by email. And being responsive, attentive, says a lot about your character as a student.
Great. That's a good one to know. Definitely not one. Online college, there's a lot of communication with professors, and the more communication there leads to success. Makes sense now in high school. It's kind of going the same way, but also everybody gets computers and laptops, and you're not using a word processor or laboratory or like a typewriter.
Right. Well, speaking of laptops and technology, that's another way to prepare prior to going back to the school year. Some schools issue laptops. Other schools require you to purchase them privately. And it's somewhat of a hybrid when it comes to accessing different software or gradebook portals. Nevertheless, it's important to have that access before you begin the school year. Inevitably, there's always going to be IT issues, whether it's remembering your username and login information. That's a red flag, to a teacher if you don't know that. So ensuring that you have access and you troubleshoot those IT issues over the summer. It could be the physical device itself, from a poor battery to a missing cable. Those are things that when you walk into the school on day one, that should all be sorted out.
Right.
There could be a long wait time. It's just like, submitting a help desk ticket. You might have an issue, but there's a million other problems that the IT director is going to have to deal with.
Right.
You're probably going to the back of the line. And by that time, it's been several weeks. You're playing catch up. Your anxiety rises. Your stress rises because you can't access an increasing amount of assignments or work that's given online. So it's both a blessing and a curse. You need to stay up to date on that technology front.
Yeah. Crazy. All I worried about when I was a kid was making sure I had my the brown paper bags on my textbook. You remember you could cut them and fold them, so you had the
textbooks
cover.
Are going away.
They said show up to class with your textbook covered, or else you're gonna get written up or extra homework or something like that. And then now it's like make sure you show up with your laptop up to date. All of your antivirus is good. All of your logins are checked.
That's right. The battery power and whatnot. And a good teacher will ensure that you have extra laptops, and a school usually has extra laptops, but it's one less thing to worry about to have a functioning laptop in IT equipment.
How do cell phones affect the classroom? Like, are cell phones like the same category as computers, where I could just whip out my cell phone and look something up?
Well, speaking of cell phone, there's the cultural component. Our society is highly addicted to them. However, schools have been battling how to deal with them, kind of wavering back and forth as to whether or not to incorporate them, embrace them, and police them to an extent, whereas other schools are banning them outright.
Right.
As far as I know, I think the Netherlands and France have introduced legislation in even some U.S. states to ban them from schools, in part because they're not only a distraction academically, but unfortunately, social media and the spreading of rumors can seriously impact a student's mood during the school day.
Oh, I agree.
So yeah, that's school dependent, which also leads to preparing yourself by reading the updated school handbook. Usually over the summer months, the school administration and faculty will make significant changes and revisions to their school handbook. They may or may not communicate that. Generally, there's some type of consent form signed within the first several days of the school year. Most students and parents do not read it in its entirety. In my experience, it's like the fine print for the notification in terms of acceptance at the bottom of some online portal. But you should read that fine print because there may be increased consequences. There may be new policies,
Right.
everything from academic probation to dress code to disciplinary policies. That's usually the big one, especially cell phone policies. So familiarizing yourself with that in advance will, again, give you a leg up. You don't want to necessarily get into unnecessary trouble at the beginning of the school year and the excuse "I didn't know"
Right.
as you climb into the higher grades is not usually accepted.
Right. So back to school, beginning of the year, probably keep your cell phone in your backpack.
Yes, I would not want to be the student getting caught with excessive cell phone usage during the school day.
Right. Or texting during class or on
Correct.
FaceTime during
Correct.
class.
Having that discipline over the summer will pave the way for a successful school year and the transition.
What was Mr. D's policy?
It was
What was that? Was your teaching name? What,
Mr. D. Yes.
Mr. D.
Yep.
Mr.
Or
Dornfried.
in Austria, it was Herr D.
Hair D.
Yes.
Nice.
Well, it, again, depends on the school, but based on the communication with the teacher, generally speaking, they have their own internal classroom policies that you can probably familiarize yourself with over the summer. Either request them or you'll be getting them on day one of the school year. Generally, there's some handbook agreement, there's a curriculum map, there's classroom policies. So every teacher differs to an extent. So you need to be prepared to be a little bit flexible as well.
Right.
Usually it's nothing more lax than what the minimum school policy is, but it can oftentimes become stricter
Right.
than the school policy. So depends on the teacher. And I would generally say that I was on the stricter end of the spectrum.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no, I definitely value the attentiveness and the full immersion in the learning time that we had in class. And I saw firsthand the negative effects that cell phones could have from the anxiety and stress of students during the classroom, and then the ultimate correlation to poor performance. So there is some studies out there that will reinforce that. So
you're saying that if you took a kid's cell phone away, he might be apt to having a harder time in class because he didn't have his cell phone and his grades are impacted, or
well, if they had the cell phone, initially there might be some withdrawal by not having that cell phone.
yeah.
In class for the anxiety of not having it accessible. But over time, generally, I think they would come to accept that, especially if it was a class-wide effort and there was consistent application of the rules within the class, that it would become a cultural norm within the room, and it would then eventually translate into a better collective classroom morale and relationship where students are conversing with each other as well.
Yeah.
So you definitely got to familiarize yourself with that over the summer and remain organized as well. That's a big one. Moving into the school year, gathering those school supplies, but also arranging them in a way that works well for you.
Yeah.
Although most schools are gradually transitioning to full online experiences, there's always a place for the analog, the traditional hard copy 3-ring binder with folders, with file tabs, with loose leaf paper, pens and pencils. You're going to want to organize the documents that you're going to be issued. Unless you're carrying a portable scanner with you,
Right.
you're going to accumulate a lot of paperwork, and it's important to keep that. Everything from homework to worksheets, and you're oftentimes going to have substitute teachers who may not have the ability to issue you something electronically. So you want to have a fallback hard copy version.
And this might also be a good time to throw in, we want to help at Family Programs. So we do back to school. So when we get close to the school year, like we are now, we have email go out to most of the units, and we get a big Operation Homefront donates a bunch of backpacks, and a lot of other local places donate school supplies. So what we do is we put together like backpacks with 3-ring binders and pencils and pens and stuff like that. And we'll put a good amount of these together, and then we'll give them away to our units that are across the state. So we reach out to our local MIFers, our military family readiness specialists, and they'll work with their units to make sure that they're distributed. So keep an eye out. We can keep an eye out for that. Unit members, soldiers, family members. We will be having our back to school supplies going out soon. So keep an eye on our Facebook page, VTNG Family Programs on Facebook, and then you'll see our posts. We'll also send out an email to all the families, and then a lot of the soldiers will get an email too. But make sure you take advantage of those school supplies, because the more you take, the more we get the next year, and the better amount of supplies we can get. Freeze free,
That's right.
The more stuff we can give away to, to kids and their families to help them, start the school year out the right way, why not? So we'll have those going out here shortly. You also probably have to do your homework too, though, because summer comes, you have new kids coming in, you got to keep up with the lingo.
That's right. Sick nasty.
Sick nasty. So I brought a little list here of some of the stuff that kids are saying to see if you could maybe decipher what it means. If you don't already know, because you might already know, but things change pretty quick. So if you were talking to some of your students and you overheard the conversation and they said the word bet, what does bet mean to you?
To gamble, to make a wager.
Or if somebody said, yo, I got this gift card from my mom to go to McDonald's, let's hit it after school, and his friend said, bet. Would that change the context?
That's like, sure, you bet.
That's like in agreement.
Yes.
That's like they're betting everything. Yo, bet. Bro, bet. That's one of the new ones. My kids say it all the time. I'm just like, hey, yeah, can you make sure that you make your bed before we go for the day? Yeah, I got dad bet. I'm like, all right.
The condensation of the language into just acronyms or half words.
How about the word cap?
Like
I could either
the
say
top of a bottle.
You could say bet, or you could say cap. That's cap. Yo, that's cap. This podcast is cap.
Ooh, in that case, I don't know.
So cap means lie. So if you say like, yo, that's cap, like, that's crap, you're lying. Or no cap, like, are you for real?
Okay. So is that a way to avoid saying a swear word by taking out the letter R?
No, I don't think crap is involved.
Okay.
No, just like it's either you're telling the truth or it's cap.
Okay.
It's either you're telling the truth or it's cap.
All right. Yeah. This is all new to
That's
me.
a good one, right?
Yeah.
We did pretendance, and pretendance is the logging into an online meeting like a Zoom or a Teams or an online school call and pretending to be there and not really being there.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was cute. Pretendance.
Yep.
I don't do that, though. I make sure every call that I'm in, I'm 100% there.
You got the camera on.
The camera's on and everything. Bussin'.
Ooh.
Bussin'.
Like bussing tables.
Like bussin' wussin'.
Ooh. You got me again.
It's awesome.
Okay.
Oh, did you see that trick that guy just did on his skateboard? Yeah, dude, that was bussin'.
I'm trying to determine what the origin of that word is.
I have no idea.
What is the evolution of that?
Urban Dictionary. Drip.
Ooh.
If you got
Nothing is literal anymore. I'm a literal person.
Yeah, very.
And when I would overhear these conversations with students, I would pretend I didn't hear them or not even try to connect with them. Because if you're wrong, you're old.
Oh yeah. So like if you show up to school, so this is actually I'll put all of the lingo together. You show up after back to school, day one, you got your new Air Forces on, and they are drippy.
They're cool.
Oh yeah, they got drip. They're drippy.
Oh man,
it's pretty rough. And then sweat.
It's like no sweat, like not
kind of
piece of cake.
So like if I were to call you a sweat,
ooh,
as like an adjective.
Interesting.
Yeah, if I called you a sweat, how would you take that?
Sounds derogatory. I think of sweat as a byproduct of exercise, perspiration.
So it's kind of the opposite. It's somebody who tries too hard and they're really good at what they do. And then when you have to face them, you sweat. So like if I were to play you in basketball, like one-on-one.
You're intimidating.
You're intimidating.
Okay.
You're you're sweaty and you make me sweat when I play because you're so good. I'm so nervous. You know, I'm all over the place. You know, you're a sweat because you're making me sweat because you're so good.
Okay.
And I have to try so hard.
Okay.
Isn't that weird? It's so backwards.
Okay. All right.
Kids these days.
Man.
And the last one is the vibe check. Have you ever heard vibe check?
I've heard it. Not often, but I've heard it out there.
Yeah. So if you're vibing, you're usually in like a good spot. And then the vibe check is, you know, you toss a vibe check at your bro. Hey, vibe check. And he's like, bet we're busting over here, man. We're good. Don't worry.
Wow.
Bussin' wussin'.
Yeah. Conversations in the hallways were often a little different than in the classroom.
Oh, I can imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of the lingo that I looked up. Just like some of the most basic, like common things that the kids are saying. My kids say it all the time. I'm just like, oh, man.
Yeah, it's yearly. It really quickly evolves.
Welcome to What's That Brain Rot? I'm your host Gabby Bueller, and I'm here with our contestants. All right, Dan, your first word is skibbity.
My word is skibbity. I believe skibbity is the name of an old wooden Revolutionary warship.
Mom, your first word is sigma.
Sigma. If you come in my yard, I'll Sigma dog on you.
Rob, your first word is Ohio.
Ohio. As a history teacher, I'm tempted to say the state of Ohio, but in this context, can you please clarify and use this term in a sentence?
The behavior in Florida is Ohio.
Okay, in this context, since you used a southern state as reference and then referred to a northerner, I think it is a derogatory term for someone from the Midwest who might be perceived as being a little bit backwards or hillbilly.
Huh?
Dan, your second word is phantom tax.
Phantom tax? What is a phantom tax? Is it when you owe ghosts a lot of money?
Mom, your second word is based.
Based. I have a sturdy foundation.
Rob, for the last and final word, you should be able to get this one. Your word is alpha.
Alpha. I've heard this one before. It's probably in the context of an alpha male or female, someone who is dominant, who asserts themselves, who might be a little bit authoritarian, but definitely leads in the context of a group.
Thank you for coming and watching our game show. What's That Brain Rot?
So another part of going back to school, parents. What can parents do to preload getting ready for back to school? I know I have kids in high school. I have younger kids. I kind of have a spectrum of, you know, ages. I have a hard time with homework, helping my student, my oldest student out with homework. Like math, they don't do math the same way that I did it. There's all these different, you know, interpretations, different ways to do things, and kids are learning differently. You know, from a teacher's perspective, what's the best way for a parent to keep up with that?
Yep. So I think for like the student over the summer is to maintain communication with the teacher. The schedule is usually known before the end of the prior school year, unless there's any changes over the summer with the guidance counselors. But when it comes to school policies, that's usually referenced in the school handbook, especially if you're entering into high school. It's usually pretty thick, and they generally have a section dedicated to what the homework policy is of the school. Everything from how much homework is assigned to the quantity, the frequency. But that could be dependent, again, on what grade they're in and what courses they're taking. It's a very common question that I get from parents and students is the homework policy. So familiarizing yourself with the specific teacher and the school's policy is imperative. And if you have any questions, reach out. But there's generally an expectation that, you know, as you increase in grade level and difficulty level, there's going to be significantly more homework. how parents can familiarize themselves with what their student will be learning so they can get a head start on potentially gathering any materials or finding alternate methods of supporting that student if they would theoretically need a tutor, for example, is to get access to the textbooks. And one way to do that is to download the digital version, or if it's still an analog copy, a hard copy that some schools maintain, you can usually get that over the summer months. I've had many students over the years and parents reach out to me to get access to the textbook. They take it home during the summer months, they begin reading through it, they determine what they may or may not need help with. They can then reach out to potentially locate tutors, to contact the school about what additional support is offered. Oftentimes there's hidden gems for free support within the building that you might not even be aware of. For example, National Honor Society students in high school, usually, if not required, community service hours. And many of those National Honor Society students, those high-flying juniors and seniors, will give free tutoring because they want to and because they have to meet a service requirement.
It's extracurricular, so it looks really good on their applications.
And I find that students connect with the student tutors much better. You know, they're similar in age, they understand the teacher, they're only recently removed from when they've been taught that, because I recognize that different methods of instruction have changed over the years. I'm a history teacher by trade, so not all that much has changed in terms of the instructional methods, but I know math, especially reading and writing, there have been some changes. So ensuring that you're familiar with what that style is and understanding what support is available at the school is important. And that's why contacting your guidance counselors is also important.
Yeah.
Usually each student has a single assigned guidance counselor, and it's important to establish a rapport with them.
Yeah.
Regardless if you have some type of special education plan, you want to know who they are because eventually they're going to help you with the college process or their career planning process.
Right. They're going to plan your future with you.
Right. And it's a reciprocal relationship. It's not supposed to be a one-way street where the school necessarily reaches out to the parent. And, you know, they have to do that professionally, but to a minimal extent. There's hundreds of thousands of students at the school. Each teacher and counselor probably has several hundred students assigned to them. But in order to get the most out of that resource, you have to build that relationship with them.
Right.
And they're more than happy to work with you if you show the initiative in wanting to learn more and get the most out of the school.
Right. Make that communication, make yourself known.
Correct.
Stand out. You'll get the attention, you'll get the help.
Correct. And face-to-face communication, I find, is also extremely beneficial. It's easy and convenient to do email. You're busy. You're at work. I get it. But the best relationships, in my opinion, in the triad between student, teacher, and parent is when there's a face-to-face meeting. Right. And generally there is one at the beginning of the school year. Most schools have conferences, in September, October timeframe.
And with technology, they're really good at making sure you don't miss a parent-teacher conference.
Correct. You can do a video conference. But even during the summer months, there's nothing wrong with, scheduling a visit. Guidance usually is there during the entire summer. If you have an important question, pop on in, say hello. That goes a long way. Teachers are usually there several weeks before the school year starts. If you would like to tour the building, especially if you're a transitioning student from middle to high school or a transfer student, you want to know the layout of the building.
And you have that right. That's
correct.
Where your child is going to be going for a majority of their time.
Yeah, for everything from familiarity with the buildings, where each of your classrooms are located. You can map out what route you're going to take for safety purposes too. You want to know where the entrances, the exits are. That's an important way to reduce the stress and anxiety of that first day of school, where students are scrambling to find where their classroom is,
where their locker is that they can't get open.
Correct. And nobody wants to be that student who shows up 10 minutes late to class on the first day of school because they couldn't find their locker or
if you got your drippy Air Force Ones, you don't mind walking in front of the class.
I know. But generally, especially if you're an incoming freshman or a transfer student who nobody knows who you are, that's one way to reduce the risk of being isolated.
Bet.
I like that.
I swear.
Yeah. Well, another way to kind of ease the transition from the student and the parent perspective is to get involved with the school community, whether it's an extracurricular club, a parent-teacher organization, sports, band. Oftentimes that starts well before the school year.
Yeah.
And so if you can become integrated and involved with that, the transition is going to be all that much smoother. You're going to know people. You're probably going to be in the building. You're going to have those connections. You'll know who the teachers are because oftentimes they're coaches. You might even have, teammates who are going to be in your classes. So having those friendships on day one, having those parental collegial acquaintances is very important to get integrated and comfortable with your new school and reduce the stress of that back to school transition.
Yeah. And the more you're prepared, the easier your school year is going to be.
Correct.
Stress is what it's really all about.
It is.
The more you're prepared, the less stress you are.
Right.
The more easier you're going to learn.
It's stress management. It really is. It's always chaos at the beginning of the school year for students, parents, teachers. Doing one less thing, to reduce that risk is important. And that also comes down to managing your time. Your bodies have to adjust to the beginning of the school year. I remember as a teacher, that's the hardest part. Your body is under tremendous stress, staying up late grading papers, lesson planning, getting up early to get to school before the students do. And the same thing goes for the students, getting ready for the bus. Then having sports or extracurriculars after school, your time frame to hang out and get homework done is now extremely limited. And so if you can make the commitment during the summer to have a degree of discipline and regimentation in what your schedule is, especially in the few weeks leading up to the school year, with setting aside specific times for doing homework, putting your cell phone away, putting the laptop or TV remote away, that is going to further help you transition physically to the beginning of the school year. Too often, you get addicted to video games over the summer. You now have hours of homework to do, and the student is extremely tired at the beginning of the school day, and that then translates into poor performance. And it's something that you have to wean yourself off of. And if you can manage that from both a parental perspective and a self, correction, self-disciplined student approach, you're going to be just fine.
Well said. Kicking it off the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about that work you put in ahead of time.
It is.
And then you're going to have a good school year. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We're here to talk about the Back to School Brigade. And with us, I have Jessy Smith. Jessy, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We've actually already seen you on the show. Nobody knows you yet, though. You were on our last episode with the Lake Monsters.
I was. I got to go hang out with Champ for a little bit and talk about our military appreciation game for the Lake Monsters.
Well, it's nice to have you formally in here with us instead of out in the field sweating in front of Champ.
Yeah.
So Back to School Brigade, tell us what we got going on.
So every year for Back to School Brigade, Operation Homefront, they have a cooperation with Dollar Tree stores. So they put out a donation bin there, and people can donate back to school items like pencils, pens, notebooks, all that stuff. And they donate them right there. And then we send volunteers around to pick up all those donation boxes. And then we figure out ways to get them sent out to the units so that they have those for when their kids go back to school.
Great. Free school supplies for all the kids.
Oh, yes. And we actually have lots of backpacks this year from Operation Homefront as well that they sent us. So it's going to be exciting.
And they do it every year.
They do.
So we get backpacks, school supplies every year for families, soldiers.
Absolutely. It varies based on Dollar Tree locations. And, of course, it's always down to, how many people have donated. And
right.
So.
And if people want access to these school supplies, what's the best way to go about doing that?
Either see if some of the school supplies are at their units or contact their MIFR, and we'll make sure that they get what they need.
Yeah. So our MIFRs are military family readiness specialists.
Yes.
We talk about them all the time on the podcast. They're like the people who actually send the deliverables. So in this case, MIFRs will reach out to their units and see if they want any backpacks or school supplies. And then the unit members just, at drill time, right? That's the big time.
Absolutely. My goal is to make sure that all the units have at least some of these supplies before their August drills.
And it's been successful in the past.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, we get rid of everything.
Yeah. And sometimes we even have stuff left over, but usually if people need something and they go ask, they get what they need.
Great. So Operation Homefront, gathering all the school supplies for kids. Yeah, it seems really easy.
Yeah. It's aside from having people go around and pick up the donations, it's a pretty painless process.
And you brought one of the backpacks for this coming year, right?
I did.
All right, let's see what we got. So this is decent. So Operation Homefront sends a backpack every year, and this is good quality. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd send my kids to school this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they'll fall apart very easy.
Yeah, well, let's see
They're
what we
nice
got.
material.
So this is going to be pretty much what's going to be coming out to all the units.
Yes, the backpack, we have a few different colors.
So a couple books
but-
usually, yeah.
Yep.
Colors, like pencil holders. This is all great stuff, and this is all free.
Yes.
Look at this, Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, yes, pencil sharpener.
Mickey Mouse pencil sharpener. I mean, high schoolers would fight over that. I know it. And pencils, like, this is great. I didn't realize there was so much in this. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was going to be like just like a backpack with like an empty folder and like a trapper keeper.
Yeah.
Are those still things? Are trapper keepers still a thing?
I don't know. I'm not cool enough to know the answers to that question.
Well,
so
this is like so much stuff though, like for back to school, and this is all free. So
Yes.
if anybody's interested in this stuff, we did just say we'll drop it off at the units for drill. So make sure that your unit is reaching out to family programs and making sure that we send them supplies. That's a big deal. So yeah, just have them reach out to family programs and we'll coordinate supplies. And then, service members, when they go to drill for the month, they can just pick it up if they want it.
absolutely. And sometimes units like to do it different ways. Some of them like to have the backpacks packed already.
Yeah.
And some of them like to just have the school supplies out there so that people can pick what they want instead of just getting random stuff.
Yeah, well, this is great. This is a great deal, and it's all for free.
It is.
Free is great. So follow us on Family Programs, VTNG VTNG Family Programs for our Facebook. We'll post all of our Back to School Brigade. I think we actually usually send out a notification that the time of the year back to school is here and we're
Yeah.
going to do this. So if people are on our Facebook, they'll be able to check and see there, and they can remind their spouses to, kick their command to make sure that we're sending out the backpacks to the units.
Absolutely. And if anyone gets missed, they can feel free to reach out to us here,
Oh, yeah.
and we'll absolutely make sure they get something. So we want to make sure that nobody's left without.
Yeah, there's plenty to go around. Yeah, so
Absolutely.
if you're not able to get anything from your unit, just reach out to us directly, and we'll make sure that we take care of you. But this is great, though. Wow, like what a benefit to have, just like every year, free school supplies.
Yeah.
For more information or support, please reach out to the Vermont Military Family Support Center's toll-free number, 888-607-8773. The preceding content does not constitute endorsement by the Department of the U.S. Army, U.S. Air Force, Vermont National Guard, or Vermont Military Family Programs of the organization's products and services contained therein. Further, the Vermont Military Family Programs assumes no responsibility for the consequences of using the products or services provided by the organizations or resources listed. Vermont Military Family Programs makes every effort to present our clients with reputable resources. We cannot guarantee the validity of said resources, and the use of such resources is voluntary.